It is time now for the ETF report. Canadian ETFs are proving popular among investors. And so for some ideas, let's go to Valerie Grimba, Director of Global ETF Strategy at RBC Capital Markets. It's good to have you join us.
Thank you for having me.
So I do want to get to some Canadian ETFs, but just first of all, after what we saw over the weekend and into the first couple of days with these strikes in Iran and Iran retaliating, what fund flows are you seeing after this all kind of went down?
Yeah, exactly. So we had Monday to kind of digest this news that happened over the weekend and saw a mixed bag in ETF fund flows. But actually, I would say that it was kind of like cautiously optimistic in the flows. We saw kind of broad-based equity buying, of course, defense and aerospace ETFs saw strong fund flows yesterday. We also saw kind of bifurcated activity in the fixed income space. So that was a lot of buying in ultra-short treasuries. So that's 0 to 3 month duration. This is very much a safety trade. But we also saw a lot of inflows and buying activity on the long end of the curve. This ETF is called TLT. It had strong inflows, and I think this is kind of a bet on this being an inflationary, potentially inflationary event, and investors or traders trying to get ahead of that as well.
Interesting. When it comes to Canadian ETFs that you see as being popular right now, which ones are you seeing the most?
The trends in Canada have really been broad-based. So far in 2026, really see a lot of interest in international equities. This is, again, part of the broadening rotation trade, people kind of looking outside of the U.S. and looking for other avenues to really find that alpha in this mixed market with kind of contrarian signals. And then, of course, a lot of headline risk and now geopolitical uncertainties as well.
I know you flagged a couple of ETFs in particular, so we'll go through those. When it comes to Canadian energy, the BMO Spider Energy Select Sector Index ETF, what do you like about this one?
Yeah, so this holds the energy sector in the U.S., and this was to start a valuation call. Listen, when we looked at energy sector in the U.S. versus all the other GIC sectors, we thought that there was some value opportunity in the energy space with, of course, some positive momentum on the earnings side as well. Now we have this geopolitical strife. We have, obviously, commodities rallying on the back of that. This will no doubt be a tailwind for the sector as well. But primarily, when we initiated a recommendation here, it was a valuation play.
Okay, we're going to stay in the U.S.-Canada energy sector for a moment because State Street Energy Select Sector Spider ETF, another one of your picks. What do you like about this one?
This is the same.
It's the same.
Yeah, it's the exact same. It's just it's the U.S. listed version, and the BMO Spider is the Canadian listed version.
Got it. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one then. Morningstar International Value Index ETF. You might have mentioned this off the top. I don't know if you did, but can you go into more detail about this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is actually, we've seen a shift of interest into a value factor ETF. So these ETFs, again, are kind of looking at valuation first and foremost before they go through the screening stock selection process. And as we think about AI jitters in the market, valuation on Mag 7 or other software-related companies, maybe there's some concerns around valuations. If you pick an ETF that has a value bent to a tilt to it, then you're kind of looking at a different pocket of the market. And we think, again, there's some compelling reasons to think about that consideration given the current market setup, and there could be opportunity there to see some re-rating, some valuation improvements, and then ultimately some alpha generation looking at international value stocks.
And lastly, for a high dividend, you've got the Fidelity International High Dividend ETF.
Yes, again, so we're keeping an international tilt to these recommendations, kind of, again, broadening that exposure. And then we like quality dividends, so kind of putting those both together, that skews higher quality companies. But in an environment where we think that broadly rates are going to be in hold for this foreseeable future, we need to look for other ways to diversify income and kind of search out that yield. And we thought that adding a quality international high dividend index would be an interesting way to seek out additional income in the current market setup.
When you talk about that, like central banks broadly holding rates steady, you say your economics team is flagging a stagflation light environment. So
yes.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so we're kind of, again, this is, I don't want to speak out of turn here because this is my economics department, but what they mean by that is really kind of sticky inflation, growth moderating, some push and pull dynamics, and they talk a lot about a K-shaped economy going forward as well. So that's really the higher end of that K kind of carrying the economy. That's the higher net worth consumers and kind of these different mixed signals at play going forward.
You also have been watching some Bitcoin ETFs. You say they've been remarkably resilient so far this year. Why is that?
They've been resilient in the holdings and the lack of outflows. So obviously there's been a big negative price move in Bitcoin, but the Bitcoin ETF holders have been remarkably resilient in not selling out of their positions and keeping this allocation within the ETF sleeve. And so what that really tells us is that people are using the ETF, the Bitcoin ETF, as a way to express that allocation, and they haven't panicked in the face of this very dramatic move to the downside.
And is that specific to Canadian Bitcoin ETFs?
It's actually both. We've seen it here in Canada. Actually, here in Canada, I think we've seen net inflows into Bitcoin ETFs year to date. And in the US, they've been pretty flat. So neither really adding or subtracting. They're just kind of holding steady here at these current levels.
Okay, we will leave it there, but it's so good to get your insight on all this. Thanks so much for joining us.
Great, thanks for having me.
That's Valerie Grimba, Director of Global ETF Strategy at RBC Capital Markets.